Chosen one, why does your heart race at 3 a.m. when nothing's wrong? Why does that blessing everyone's celebrating feel like a trap in your spirit? Why is God shaking you awake right now when you should be sleeping? Chosen one, this isn't coincidence. Heaven stopped you right here, right now, because you're about to fall into something that looks like destiny but smells like destruction. Listen. Do you hear that? That's not your imagination. That's the sound of spiritual sirens piercing through the night, God's emergency alert system pulling you out of slumber before you step off a cliff you can't see in the dark. You've been carrying it, haven't you? That weight in your chest that won't lift. Those sleepless nights when your spirit won't settle. That gnawing feeling that you're being forgotten while others get their breakthrough. But what if I told you that restlessness isn't abandonment, it's protection? What if your delay isn't denial, it's divine intervention? Something is hunting you, beloved. Something dressed as an angel of light, wrapped in the very package you've been praying for. The enemy doesn't come with horns and pitchforks. He comes with contracts that look like answered prayers, relationships that feel like destiny, opportunities that shine like gold but lead straight to spiritual bankruptcy. Right now, this very second, you're standing at a crossroads that will determine your next decade. The path to your left glitters with everything you think you want. The path to your right looks empty, requiring faith you're not sure you have. But here's the shocking truth that'll save your life. What looks like your blessing might be your burial. What appears as your breakthrough might be your breakdown. God is literally begging you to stop, not because he wants to withhold good from you, but because he sees the snare hidden in what looks like salvation. The pressure you feel to move now, to decide quickly, to grab what's in front of you before it disappears, that pressure isn't from heaven. The blessing of the Lord adds no sorrow to it. Before we go deeper into this divine warning, I want to pause and thank every single one of you who has supported this message through Super Thanks. Your generosity means more than you know. You're not just donating. You're helping spread light to others who feel alone in their calling. Whether you give or not, I'm deeply grateful for your presence here. Your support, your time, your attention, it all matters. And if this message resonates with your soul, go ahead and sow that seed of faith. But listen carefully. What if the very thing you've been chasing, believing, trusting, is the enemy's perfectly crafted snare? What if your biggest yes needs to become your most powerful not yet? If this is already stirring something deep in your chest, if your spirit is trembling with recognition, type "I hear you, Lord" in the comments. Because what I'm about to reveal will either save your destiny, or you'll ignore it and wonder years from now how you fell so far so fast. The alarm is sounding. The question is, will you listen? Can you smell the roses, or do you smell the thorns? Can you see the golden door, or do you see the trap behind it? Can you feel God's peace washing over that decision, or does your spirit recoil like it's touching poison? Dear chosen one, we've reached the most dangerous intersection of your spiritual journey. This isn't just another sermon about discernment. This is a matter of life and spiritual death. Because right now, as you're listening to my voice, the enemy is positioning his masterpiece deception directly in your path. 2 Corinthians 11:14 cuts straight to the bone. Satan himself masquerades as an angel of light. Not darkness, not obvious evil. Light. Beautiful, attractive, seemingly divine light that draws you like a moth to a flame that will burn your wings clean off. Picture this. You're walking through the desert of waiting, parched from years of delayed promises, when suddenly you see an oasis shimmering ahead. Crystal clear water, shade trees, everything your soul has been crying out for. But here's the thing about mirages: they disappear the moment you get close enough to drink. The enemy's greatest weapon isn't temptation that looks evil, it's temptation that looks like answered prayer. Let me paint you another picture that'll shake your foundation. You see a gleaming apple hanging from a tree, perfectly ripe, calling your name. But that apple has been dipped in honey, laced with arsenic. The first bite tastes like heaven. The second bite starts the dying. That's how spiritual deception works, beloved. It starts sweet and ends in destruction. For 70, 80, maybe 90 years, you've walked with God. You know His voice, you know His ways, but the enemy knows something about you that you might have forgotten when you're desperate, when you're tired, when you've been waiting so long that your faith feels paper thin. You become vulnerable to counterfeits that shine just bright enough to catch your weary eyes. That job opportunity that came out of nowhere, the one that pays twice what you expected, but requires you to compromise your Sunday worship. That relationship that makes you feel alive again but subtly pulls you away from your prayer time. That financial breakthrough that solves all your problems but comes from sources that make your spirit uncomfortable. That open door that looks like destiny but requires you to step over your convictions to walk through it. Gold paint, dear one. That's all it island fools, gold painted over lead pipes. And gold paint washes off in the rain. You see, the enemy studied you. He watched you pray. He noted what you asked for. He memorized your weaknesses, your longings, your breaking points. Then he crafted counterfeits, so close to your real blessing that only your spirit, only that deep, quiet voice of the Holy Spirit can tell the difference. But when you're tired of waiting, when everyone around you seems to be moving forward while you stand still, that quiet voice gets drowned out by the noise of your desperation. Here's what they don't teach you in Sunday school. The enemy's greatest victories don't come through obvious sin. They come through good things offered at the wrong time, right opportunities presented through wrong people, and God's will pursued through ungodly methods. Satan doesn't need you to rob a bank. He just needs you to take shortcuts to your destiny that bypass God's timing, God's methods, God's character development. Remember Eve in the garden? The fruit wasn't inherently evil. God made every tree, but that one tree, at that one moment, with that one choice, became the door through which sin entered the world. The issue wasn't the fruit, it was the source of the offer and the timing of the decision. You know what breaks my heart? I've watched chosen ones, people just like you, people with decades of faithful service, people who've weathered storms that would sink lesser souls. I've watched them throw away their entire legacy for something that glittered in the darkness of their discouragement. Esau traded his birthright for a bowl of soup. Not because he was evil, but because he was hungry and the soup smelled good and his patience had run out. Don't you dare let impatience cost you your inheritance. The pressure you feel right now, that urgency screaming, take it, grab it, before it disappears. That pressure is not from heaven. Let me tell you something that'll save your soul. Pressure is not proof of God's blessing, Peace Island. Real divine opportunities come with supernatural peace, even when they require faith. False opportunities come with pressure, anxiety, and a ticking clock designed to rush you past your discernment. God's voice never pressures, it persuades. God's timing never panics, it provides. God's doors never slam shut if you pause to pray. They wait for your obedience. But the enemy's counterfeits, they come with expiration dates. Act now or lose forever. This offer won't last. Everyone else is moving, you'll be left behind. That, beloved, is the sound of hell trying to stampede you past your spirit's warning system. Stand still. Breathe deep. Ask yourself, does this opportunity require me to move faster than my peace? Does this door ask me to compromise what God has built in me? Does this blessing demand I silence the very voice that's guided me through every storm I've ever survived? If the answer is yes, then you're not looking at your blessing. You're looking at your test. And the only passing grade is the courage to walk away from what looks good, to wait for what God calls best. Say it aloud right now, wherever you are. I choose His peace, not the counterfeit glitter. Let your spirit hear your voice. Choose God's timing over your impatience, His methods over your shortcuts, His perfect will over your good ideas. Because here's what I need you to understand as we move deeper into this warning. The very intensity of these false opportunities, the very urgency of these deceptive offers, is actually proof of something magnificent. You're closer to your real breakthrough than you've ever been before. But the question that will determine whether you receive that breakthrough or fall into the enemy's snare is this: will you trust God's timing enough to wait for His peace? Dear chosen one, I need you to stop everything and listen to me like your life depends on it, because it does. Picture this. You're a parent watching your 3-year-old chase a ball into a busy street. Cars are barreling down at 60 miles per hour. Your child can't see the danger, can't hear the engines, can't comprehend that death is racing toward them. What do? You don't whisper, you don't suggest. You scream, you leap, you grab them with every ounce of strength in your body, because love doesn't calculate, love reacts. That's God right now. That's the Almighty Father watching you chase something that looks innocent, looks beautiful, looks like the answer to your prayers, but He sees the 18-wheeler of destruction bearing down on you at full speed. You remember that health scare 2 years ago, don't you? When the doctor's words felt like a death sentence, when you thought your time was up, when you bargained with God, promising Him everything if He'd just give you more time, and then the tests came back different. The second opinion changed everything. The tumor that looked malignant was benign. The heart that seemed failing was just stressed. What you thought was God's punishment was actually God's protection, pulling you back from a lifestyle that was slowly killing you. You felt angry then, didn't you? Angry at the fear, angry at the uncertainty, angry at having your plans disrupted. But now you see it clearly. That health scare wasn't your enemy, it was your rescue. What about that family betrayal that shattered your heart into a million pieces? When your own blood turned against you over money, over inheritance, over secrets that should have stayed buried. You cried yourself to sleep for months, wondering why God allowed people you loved to hurt you so deeply. But then you discovered what they were really planning behind closed doors. The business deal that would have bankrupted you, the investment scheme that would have stolen your retirement, the relationship that would have destroyed your marriage. Their betrayal felt like a knife in your back, but it was actually God's hand pushing you away from a cliff you couldn't see in the fog of trust. And that money offer, oh, that golden opportunity that came knocking just when your bills were piling up like mountains. The stranger who offered to solve all your problems with one signature. The deal that seemed too good to be true because it was too good to be true. You felt the Holy Spirit whispering, wait, but desperation was screaming now. Thank God you listened to the whisper, because 6 months later you watched the news as that same company collapsed, taking thousands of retirees' life savings with them. Here's what Proverbs 10:22 tells us with crystal clarity. The blessing of the Lord brings wealth, without painful toil for it. Did you catch that? Without painful toil, without sleepless nights. Without that knot in your stomach that tells you something's wrong, without the pressure that feels like you're drowning. Real blessing doesn't come with panic attacks. Real blessing doesn't require you to compromise your values. Real blessing doesn't demand you move faster than your peace can follow. But here's the question that's going to shatter everything you thought you knew about your story. What if your greatest heartbreak wasn't failure, but God's rescue in disguise? What if every door that slammed in your face was actually God's hand pushing you away from destruction? What if every delay that made you furious was divine intervention saving your life? What if every no that felt like rejection was heaven's way of protecting you from something that would have consumed you? Think about it. Really think about it. How many times have you looked back on your life and realized that what felt like the worst thing that ever happened to you was actually the best thing that could have happened? How many times have you said, thank God that didn't work out about something you once desperately wanted? Moses spent 40 years in the wilderness, probably wondering why God was wasting his time with sheep when he could be leading people. But those 40 years weren't waste. They were preparation. Without that desert training, Moses would never have had the patience to deal with 2 million complaining Israelites. What felt like exile was actually education. David ran from cave to cave for years, hiding from King Saul, probably asking God, "Why did you anoint me king if I'm going to die in these caves?" But those caves weren't his tomb, they were his training ground. Every psalm he wrote in darkness became light for millions. Every moment of hiding was building the character he'd need to rule a kingdom. Joseph sat in prison for years after being falsely accused, likely wondering if God had forgotten his promise. But that prison wasn't punishment, it was positioning. If Joseph had gone straight from the pit to the palace, he would have been crushed by the pressure. Prison taught him patience, humility, and how to interpret dreams, the very skill that would make him second in command of Egypt. Your delays aren't divine forgetfulness, they're divine interruptions. Your setbacks aren't God's rejection, they're God's redirection. Your closed doors aren't punishment, they're protection. Right now, this very moment, there's something you're chasing, something you want so badly you can taste it, something that looks like the answer to all your problems. But your spirit feels heavy when you think about it. Your peace gets disrupted when you pursue it. Your joy disappears when you imagine getting it. That heaviness, that's not fear, that's the weight of God's warning pressing down on your soul, begging you to stop before you step into a trap disguised as a triumph. The enemy is cunning, beloved. He doesn't tempt you with obvious evil. He tempts you with counterfeit good. He offers you fool's gold that glitters like the real thing until you get close enough to see it's worthless. He presents you with shortcuts that lead to dead ends, opportunities that open doors to dungeons, relationships that promise heaven but deliver hell. If you know God has pulled you back before, if you can see his protective hand in your story, drop a in the comments and testify. Let someone else who's struggling to trust his timing hear your story, because your testimony might be the warning that saves their destiny. But here's what's keeping me awake at night. What's burning in my spirit like fire shut up in my bones. What if you ignore the warning this time? What if the pressure to move, to act, to grab what's dangling in front of you becomes stronger than your discernment? What if this is the moment that determines whether you step into your destiny or stumble into your destruction? But God isn't warning you just to protect you from what's ahead. He's revealing what's already burning around you right now. And I need you to understand something that will shatter every lie you've believed about your pain. That fire you've been walking through, that wasn't punishment. That was preparation. Listen to me carefully, chosen one. Right now, at this very moment, you are Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego standing before King Nebuchadnezzar's furnace. The flames are 7 times hotter than they've ever been. The heat is so intense that the soldiers who threw you in died just from getting close. But here's what shocks the king. Here's what stops hell in its tracks: you're not burning. Daniel 3:25 records the king's astonishment. "Look, I see 4 men walking around in the fire, unbound and unharmed, and the 4th looks like a son of the gods." You've been walking in fire for decades, thinking you were alone. But there's been a 4th man with you all along. That widowhood that left you staring at an empty chair every morning for 15 years. That wasn't abandonment, that was refinery fire burning away your dependence on human comfort so you could learn the weight of divine companionship. That child you buried when they were supposed to bury you. That agony that still makes you gasp at 3 a.m. That wasn't cruelty, that was the furnace forging a heart that could hold the pain of others without breaking. Your furnace isn't a grave, it's a refinery. That heat was not to destroy you, but to burn away the chains. Every sleepless night you've spent questioning God's goodness, every tear you've cried in bathroom stalls so your family wouldn't see you break, every time you've whispered, "How much more can I take?" Those weren't signs of your weakness. Those were the sounds of gold being purified. Malachi 3:3 declares, "He will sit as a refiner and purifier of silver. He will purify the Levites and refine them like gold and silver." You think you're being destroyed, but God sees precious metal being perfected. The fire that should have killed you has only revealed what you're truly made of. You want to know why that cancer couldn't claim you, why that depression couldn't drown you, why that bankruptcy couldn't break you. Because refined gold doesn't burn, it only gets more valuable. But here's where it gets supernatural. Here's where your story takes a turn that will leave the world speechless. You've been walking in this fire so long, enduring heat so intense, that something impossible is about to happen. You're not just surviving this furnace, you're about to walk out of it. And when you do, when the king of your circumstances looks at you in amazement, when your family stares in disbelief, when your doctors shake their heads in confusion, they're going to discover the same thing Nebuchadnezzar discovered. You won't even smell like smoke. Daniel 3:27 says it with precision that still shakes heaven. The fire had not harmed their bodies, nor was a hair of their head singed. Their robes were not scorched, and there was no smell of fire on them. Every trace of what should have destroyed you will be gone. The scent of suffering won't cling to your clothes. The residue of pain won't follow you into your next season. That depression that's haunted your family for 3 generations, when you walk out of this furnace, it won't even be a memory in your bloodline. That poverty that's chased you for 40 years, when you emerge from this refinery, abundance will be so complete that people will forget you ever struggled. That loneliness that made you question if anyone would notice if you disappeared. When this fire releases you, you'll be surrounded by relationships so divine that isolation will seem like a fairy tale. You're not coming out damaged, dear one. You're coming out refined. You're not emerging wounded. You're walking out as a weapon. The very trials that should have killed you have been forging you into something so powerful, so anointed, so dangerous to the kingdom of darkness that hell is about to regret every flame it sent your way. Isaiah 54:17 isn't just a promise, it's a prophecy being fulfilled in your life right now. No weapon forged against you will prevail. Not some weapons, not most weapons, no weapon. Because refined gold doesn't just survive the fire, it becomes more valuable than anything that tried to destroy it. And right now, as I speak these words, can you feel it? Can you sense the temperature changing? Can you hear the king of your circumstances beginning to stammer in confusion? Because what he ordered for your destruction is about to become the testimony of your deliverance. The heat that was meant to consume you has only consecrated you. The flames that were designed to finish you have only refined you. And when you step out of this furnace, when you walk through those flames one final time, the world is going to see what God looks like when he protects what belongs to him. Type "I'm coming out refined" if you believe this. Because your furnace season is ending, but your refinery season is about to shock everyone who thought the fire would finish you. But understanding your refinement is only the beginning, because when refined gold emerges from the furnace, it doesn't just sit there being valuable, it gets set into something magnificent, something purposeful, something that displays its worth to the world. But beloved, as you stand guard against the obvious traps, let me tell you about the wounds that cut deepest, the ones that come from behind, from the people you trusted most, from the lips that once spoke love, but now whisper poison. You know exactly what I'm talking about, don't you? That moment when someone you'd die for looks you straight in the eye and drives the knife deeper than any stranger ever could. That friend who smiled at your wedding but celebrated your divorce. That family member who knew your secrets and used them as weapons. That pastor who prayed over your calling, then worked behind the scenes to destroy it. It was Judas, not the Pharisees, not the Romans, who betrayed Jesus with a kiss. Luke 22:48 records those haunting words. Judas, are you betraying the Son of Man with a kiss? The most intimate gesture became the signal for destruction. The disciples' inner circle became the place of ultimate betrayal. And here you are, decades later, still carrying the shock of it. Still wondering how someone who knew your heart could be so cold. Still replaying those conversations, looking for the signs you missed, the red flags you ignored. Still asking yourself, how did I not see it coming? Listen to me carefully, dear one. What you experienced wasn't random cruelty. It was strategic warfare. The enemy doesn't waste his best soldiers on strangers who barely know you. He reserves his most devastating attacks for those closest to your heart, those who have access to your vulnerabilities, those who know exactly where to strike to cause maximum damage. Think about David and Absalom. His own son, his beloved boy, turned an entire kingdom against him. 2 Samuel 15:13 tells us that the hearts of the people of Israel went after Absalom. David had to flee his own palace, his own city, barefoot and weeping. His own flesh and blood had become his enemy. But here's what'll shake you to your core. Even in that betrayal, even in that exile, even in that humiliation, destiny was moving. David's greatest psalms were written in caves while running from those who should have protected him. His deepest intimacy with God was forged in the furnace of family betrayal. You see, chosen one, betrayal isn't the end of your story, it's the catalyst for your breakthrough. Every Judas in your life has been unwittingly pushing you toward your purpose. Every kiss laced with poison has been forcing you to depend less on human approval and more on divine approval. Could it be that the very wound in your back is the doorway to your breakthrough? Could it be that their rejection was actually God's protection? Could it be that when they walked away, they were making room for something greater to walk in? I know it doesn't feel like protection when you're crying at 2 a.m., wondering how people you loved could be so cruel. I know it doesn't feel like breakthrough when their whispers follow you into every room, when their lies spread faster than wildfire, when their smiles hide knives that cut deeper with every glance. But let me tell you what the enemy doesn't want you to know. Their betrayal is not about your failure, it's about their fear. They see something in you that terrifies them. They sense a calling on your life that makes their own existence feel small. They recognize an anointing that exposes their own spiritual poverty. Jealousy isn't punishment, beloved. It's proof. Proof that you're moving in the right direction. Proof that God's hand is on your life. Proof that what He's building in you is so powerful, so threatening to the kingdom of darkness, that hell has to use your own inner circle to try to stop you. When people who once celebrated you suddenly turn cold, when friends become critics overnight, when family members who used to brag about you now spread poison about you, that's not coincidence. That's confirmation. You're rising, and they can't handle the altitude. Remember Joseph's brothers? Genesis 37:4 says they hated him and could not speak a kind word to him. Why? Because of his dreams, because of his coat, because their father favored him. But their hatred didn't stop his destiny, it accelerated it. The pit they threw him in became the pathway to the palace. Every person who betrayed you was actually positioning you for promotion. Every lie they told about you was building your testimony. Every door they slammed in your face was God redirecting you to the door marked destiny. And here's the part that'll blow your mind. Some of those who wounded you deepest are actually praying for you now. Some of those who rejected you are now defending you. Some of those who tried to destroy you have become your greatest advocates. Because God has a way of turning betrayers into believers, enemies into evangelists, Sauls into Pauls. But even if they never change, even if they never apologize, even if they go to their graves still carrying poison about you, your destiny remains intact. Your calling doesn't depend on their approval. Your breakthrough doesn't require their blessing. Your success doesn't need their permission. The scars they left on your back are about to become the stars on your crown. The wounds they inflicted in private are about to become your witness in public. The betrayal that almost broke you is about to become the testimony that builds others. If betrayal tried to break you, if trusted hands became weapons against you, if love letters became suicide, notes to your dreams, tell us in the comments. God carried me. Let your survival become someone else's hope. Let your scars become someone else's salvation. Because what comes next will prove that every betrayer was just an unwitting servant in God's master plan for your elevation. But there's another trap, chosen one that doesn't announce itself with fanfare or glittering promises. It's the silent killer of destiny, the thief that steals your future while you're still breathing. It's the trap of numbness. You see, while you've been watching for the obvious snares, the golden opportunities that reek of compromise, the relationships wrapped in red flags, the enemy has been administering something far more insidious. Spiritual anesthesia. You're still breathing, your heart's still beating, but you're asleep on destiny's operating table while the devil performs surgery on your dreams. How did this happen? When did you stop feeling the fire? When did you start accepting good enough as good enough? When did the voice that used to roar with purpose become a whisper of resignation? I'm talking to the 5-year-old grandmother who once dreamed of writing that book, but now tells herself she's too old to start. I'm talking to the 2-year-old grandfather who had a vision to mentor young men, but convinced himself his time has passed. I'm talking to every senior saint who's put their God-given dreams on the shelf, dusted them with the lie that says that season is over. That's not wisdom, beloved. That's sleep. That's spiritual anesthesia, convincing you that your assignment has an expiration date when God never gave you a retirement letter. The Bible cuts through this deception like a surgeon's blade in Proverbs 13:4. The soul of the sluggard craves and gets nothing, while the soul of the diligent is richly supplied. Did you catch that? The lazy soul still craves it, still has desires, still has dreams, still has that God-breathed vision burning somewhere deep inside. But it gets nothing, not because God withdrew his promises, but because complacency choked them out. You've been sedated, chosen one, numbed by routine, by disappointment, by well-meaning voices that told you to act your age and be realistic. But Moses was 80 when God called him to deliver a nation. Sarah was 90 when she birthed nations. Your age isn't your disqualification, your apathy island. Let me ask you something that's going to cut deep. How many nights do you lie in bed, staring at the ceiling, feeling that familiar ache in your chest, that knowing that there's more, that you're settling, that you're dying by degrees in a life that feels too small for your soul? That ache isn't nostalgia. That's your spirit crying out against the anesthesia, fighting to wake you up before it's too late. The enemy doesn't need to destroy you dramatically. He just needs to keep you comfortable enough to stay asleep. Comfortable in your routine, comfortable in your limitations, comfortable in the story you tell yourself about being past your prime. But comfort is a slow poison. It's the gradual dimming of lights until you're living in darkness and calling it normal. It's the progressive lowering of expectations until you expect nothing and call it peace. It's the systematic shutdown of dreams until you forget you ever had them and call it maturity. Right now, as I'm speaking these words, something in you is stirring. Something that's been dormant is waking up. Something that's been buried under years of reasonable thinking is clawing its way to the surface. That stirring isn't your imagination. It's divine CPR being administered to a vision that flatlined somewhere along the way. But here's what terrifies me for you. You can hit the snooze button on this wake-up call. You can let this moment pass, go back to your regularly scheduled numbness, and wonder in 5 years why you feel more dead than alive. Because spiritual anesthesia doesn't just put your dreams to sleep, it puts your purpose to sleep, your passion to sleep, your very identity as a chosen vessel to sleep. The clock is ticking, and every second you spend in spiritual slumber is a second stolen from the assignment God is begging you to wake up and fulfill. Your family needs what's inside you. Your community needs what you carry. This generation needs the wisdom that only comes from someone who's walked through fire and came out refined. But you can't give what you won't access. You can't pour from an empty cup. You can't lead from the back row of your own life. The diligent soul, the one who refuses to accept spiritual sedation, who fights through the fog of complacency, who says, "I'm not done yet," when the world says you're finished, that soul is richly supplied. Not just with material blessings, but with purpose that makes you leap out of bed, with passion that makes your heart race, with divine assignments that make your life count for eternity. Listen to me carefully. It's better to wait on His green light than to sprint into disaster, but it's even better to stay awake for His green light than to sleep through it entirely. How many green lights have you missed because you were spiritually sedated? How many divine moments passed you by because you were comfortable in your coma? This is your alarm clock, chosen one. This is your defibrillator. This is God himself shaking you by the shoulders and screaming your name because he sees what you can't see. The enemy has been slowly turning down the volume on your destiny until you can barely hear it anymore. But the volume is coming back up. The anesthesia is wearing off. The fog is lifting. And what you're about to see when you fully wake up will shock you. You're not too old. You're not too late. You're not finished. You're just getting started. Say this aloud with me right now. I choose vigilance over sleep. I choose awakening over anesthesia. I choose to fight for my destiny instead of surrendering to numbness. Because what happens next will require you to be fully awake, fully alive, fully aware of the spiritual battle that's been raging around you while you've been unconscious. But here's where God flips the script, chosen one. Here's where heaven rewrites your story with ink made of pure gold. You think those 40 years in the wilderness were wasted. You think those decades of broken dreams, shattered relationships, and unanswered prayers were just cruel cosmic jokes. Listen to me carefully. God doesn't waste anything. Not your tears, not your trauma, not your time. Joel 2:25 thunders across eternity with a promise that will shatter every lie you've believed about your lost years. I will restore to you the years that the locust has eaten. Not some of the years. Not the good years, all the years. Every single season the enemy devoured while you watched helplessly is about to be returned to you with compound interest that will leave you breathless. Do you know what the Japanese call kintsugi? It's the ancient art of repairing broken pottery with liquid gold. When a precious vase shatters, they don't throw it away. They don't pretend the cracks don't exist. They highlight them. They fill every crack, every break, every damaged place with pure gold until the repaired piece becomes more valuable than it ever was when it was whole. That's you, beloved. That's your life right now. Every crack in your heart from betrayal, that's where God's pouring gold. Every shattered dream from your 30s, 40s, 50s, those fragments are being rebuilt with heaven's treasure. Every place you broke under pressure, under loss, under the weight of disappointment, God is filling those fractures with glory so bright it will blind the enemy who tried to destroy you. Your scars aren't shame marks, they're gold-lined proof that you're unbreakable. You didn't survive by accident, you endured by divine design. But here's what's about to shock you into a new reality. What if everything you called loss, God calls investment? What if every closed door wasn't rejection but redirection towards something bigger than your original dream? What if every delay wasn't denial but divine timing, positioning you for a harvest so massive it required decades of root development to sustain it? Think about this. Abraham was 75 when God called him. Moses was 80 when he faced Pharaoh. Sarah was 90 when she birthed nations. Caleb was 85 when he said, "Give me this mountain." Your age isn't your expiration date, it's your activation point. You've been asking God, why did I have to wait so long? But God's been asking, are you finally ready for what I've been preparing? Because what's coming isn't just restoration, it's acceleration. What should have taken 20 years is about to happen in 20 months. What seemed impossible at 30 is about to become inevitable at 70. The enemy thought he was destroying your timeline. God was building your testimony. Hell thought it was burying your purpose. Heaven was planting your platform. What looked like your funeral was actually your fertilizer. Right now, at this very moment, there are phone calls being made about you. Conversations happening in boardrooms about your name. Divine appointments being scheduled that will change everything. Doors that have been rusted shut for decades are being oiled by angel hands. People you've never met are being positioned to say yes to opportunities you haven't even imagined yet. But here's the aha moment that will change everything you thought you knew about your story. Your harvest isn't just coming, it's overdue. It's been accumulating interest in heaven's bank while you've been crying about empty accounts on earth. Every seed you planted in tears is about to produce fruit in joy. Every investment of faith you made when nothing made sense is about to pay dividends that will astound you. The Bible says in Galatians 6-9, "Let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up." You didn't give up. You held on when letting go would have been easier. You kept believing when believing hurt. You stayed faithful when faithfulness felt futile. And now the proper time has arrived. Your children who walked away are about to walk back into your life with apologies and admiration. Your health that's been failing is about to experience supernatural renewal. Your finances that have been strangled are about to break open with overflow. Your purpose that's been dormant is about to explode with clarity and power. This isn't wishful thinking. This isn't motivational hype. This is prophetic declaration backed by the unchanging Word of God. He who began a good work in you will carry it on to completion. Philippians 1-6. The completion isn't death, it's manifestation. It's the full unveiling of everything heaven invested in you through every season of suffering. You thought you were too old. God says you're perfectly aged. You thought you missed your window. God says your season is now. You thought your dreams died. God says they were just sleeping, waiting for the right moment to resurrect with power that will shake your family tree for generations. The reversal isn't just personal, it's generational. What stopped with your grandparents starts again with you. What your parents couldn't break through, you will obliterate. What your family line has struggled with for decades ends with your testimony. If you've been waiting decades for this moment, if you feel something ancient stirring in your bones, if you know this is your time to rise, comment right now. My harvest is here. Because when you declare it, heaven responds. When you speak it, angels move. When you claim it, the enemy has to surrender what he's been withholding. But the question that will determine whether you receive this reversal or watch it pass by is simple. Do you have the courage to believe that your greatest chapter is still ahead of you? Right now, as you're sitting there wondering if God has forgotten your name, there's a trial happening in the heavens, a cosmic courtroom where your entire destiny hangs in the balance. And beloved, you're not just the defendant, you're the key witness in the most important case ever brought before the throne of the Almighty. Picture this. The gavel echoes through eternity. Angels stand as witnesses. The books are opened. And there, in the center of it all, stands the accuser of the brethren, Satan himself, pointing his crooked finger at every mistake you've ever made, every failure that's haunted your sleep, every moment of weakness that's made you question if you're truly chosen. Look at them, he screams before the judge of all creation. Look at their scars. Look at their broken marriage at 72. Look at how they lost their retirement savings. Look at how their own children barely call. How can you possibly use someone so damaged, so defeated, so human? But wait, something's happening in that courtroom. The atmosphere shifts. Because every tear you've cried in secret, every sleepless night you've endured, every moment you wanted to give up but didn't, it's all being entered as evidence. Not against you, for you. Your wounds aren't your disqualification, chosen one. They're your credentials. That depression that nearly took you out at 65, evidence. That betrayal by your closest friend, evidence. That diagnosis that made you question everything, evidence. That financial ruin that left you eating soup from a can while millionaires flaunt their wealth, evidence. But evidence of what? Evidence that you've been tested in the fire and emerged with gold. Evidence that hell threw everything it had at you and you're still standing. Evidence that the enemy saw something in you so threatening to his kingdom that he had to try to destroy you before you discovered your true power. Revelation 12:10, the 11th of December lares. For the accuser of our brethren, who accused them before our God day and night, has been cast down, and they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony, and they did not love their lives to the death. Did you catch that? They overcame by the word of their testimony. Your testimony, your story, your scars, your survival. Right now, in heaven's court, your pain is being transformed into legal precedent. Every injustice you suffered is becoming jurisprudence for your breakthrough. Every tear is being catalogued as liquid evidence of your endurance. Your scars aren't shame, they're your legal standing before the throne of grace. But here's what breaks my heart. Here's what makes the angels weep. You've been hiding your testimony. You've been ashamed of your story. You've been apologizing for your scars when they're the very proof that qualifies you for the authority heaven wants to release through you. The accuser wants you to see wounds. God sees witnesses. The enemy points to your failures. The Father points to your faithfulness. Satan screams about your falls. The Savior testifies about your rises. Listen to me, dear one. That marriage that crumbled after 43 years, it qualifies you to counsel hearts that are breaking. That business that failed when you were 58, it equips you to help others rebuild from nothing. Those children who treat you like a burden, it prepares you to parent the spiritually orphaned who desperately need someone who understands rejection. Your pain wasn't pointless, it was prophetic. It was preparing you for this moment when heaven's court declares, case dismissed. Not only is the defendant free, but they're promoted to positions of authority based on their proven character under fire. But the trial isn't over. Because right now, even as heaven's verdict is being read, you have a choice. You can accept the accuser's lies and live the rest of your years in defeat. Or you can stand up in that courtroom and declare, my wounds are my witness, my scars are my signature, my pain is my platform. When Job was on trial, when everything was stripped away, when his own wife told him to curse God and die, what did he say? Though he slay me, yet will I trust him. That declaration didn't just save Job, it silenced the accuser and opened heaven's storehouse of double restoration. Your declaration right now will determine your next decade. Will you let the enemy's accusations echo in your mind? Or will you let your testimony thunder through the courts of heaven? The gavel is about to fall. The verdict is about to be read. But your voice, your declaration can shift everything. Not just for you, but for everyone connected to your destiny. Your grandchildren who need to see that faith survives failure. Your community that needs to witness what resurrection looks like. This generation that needs proof that God still vindicates the faithful. The courtroom is waiting. Heaven is watching, hell is trembling, and God himself is leaning forward from his throne, waiting to hear you declare what he's already decreed. You are more than a conqueror through him who loved you. If you know your scars are evidence, if you understand that your wounds are your witness, if you're ready to stop hiding your testimony and start wielding it as the weapon it was meant to be, say it loud. My wounds are my witness. Because the trial that was meant to condemn you is about to crown you. And what happens next will depend entirely on whether you believe the accuser's lies or accept heaven's verdict about who you really are. The courtroom drama isn't ending, beloved. It's just revealed the shocking truth about what's really been fighting for your future. And you're about to discover why this spiritual war over your destiny has been so intense. Dear chosen one, I hear the chains. Do you hear them too? That clanking sound echoing through the corridors of your heart, metal against metal, hope against disappointment, prayer against silence, for 30 years, 40 years, maybe 50 years, you've been dragging those chains behind you, wondering why God's promises feel like prison sentences. You remember, don't you? That dream you had at 25 when your knees were strong and your faith was bulletproof. You were going to change the world, build that ministry, see your children walking with the Lord, watch your marriage become a testimony. But here you are, decades later, still waiting, still hoping, still wondering if God wrote your name in disappearing ink. Your feet are tired, beloved, tired from walking the same circle of unanswered prayers, tired from explaining to yourself why the breakthrough always seems to be just around the corner. Tired from watching others half your age step into the very promises you've been claiming since their parents were in diapers. The weight of delay has changed you, hasn't it? It's carved lines in your face deeper than time ever could. You've buried dreams that used to keep you awake with excitement. You've lowered your expectations so many times they're practically underground. You've learned to say maybe when your spirit used to scream absolutely. But what if I told you something that would shatter every assumption you've made about your waiting? What if those chains aren't God's punishment, they're His protection? Listen carefully. In Habakkuk 2-3, God declares, "For the revelation awaits an appointed time. It speaks of the end and will not prove false. Though it linger, wait for it. It will certainly come and will not delay." Did you catch that? It will not delay, not in God's timing. Every second you've waited has been precisely calculated in the courts of heaven. You see, dear one, you've been thinking like a victim when God has been treating you like a weapon. Every delay has been divine preparation. Every no has been redirecting you from destruction you couldn't see. Every closed door has been protecting you from rooms that would have become your tomb. Think about David, anointed king at 16, but didn't touch the throne until 30. 14 years of running, hiding, wondering if Samuel got it wrong. 14 years of sleeping in caves while his calling slept in heaven's vault. But those weren't wasted years, they were warrior years. The shepherd boy who killed Goliath with a sling couldn't have ruled a kingdom. But the battle-tested man who emerged from those caves, he built an empire that still echoes through eternity. Joseph understood this mystery. Thrown into a pit at 17, enslaved at 18, imprisoned at 28, promoted at 30. 13 years of delay that felt like abandonment. But Genesis 41-46 tells us he was exactly 30 when he stood before Pharaoh. Not 29, not 31, 30. God's appointed time. Every year of delay had been building the character that could handle an empire without losing his soul. Your delays haven't been random, chosen one. They've been strategic. God has been protecting you from receiving blessings you weren't mature enough to steward, opportunities you weren't strong enough to survive, authority you weren't humble enough to handle. But here's what's about to break your heart with hope. Delays in God's kingdom aren't just protection, they're preparation for explosion. Picture an archer drawing back his bow. The further he pulls that arrow, the more tension builds. The string trembles under pressure. The arrow waits in what looks like stagnation, but that's not delay, that's power being compressed for maximum impact. The reason your arrow has been pulled back so far is because your target is so distant. The reason the tension has been so intense is because the impact will be so violent. God hasn't been holding you back, He's been loading you up. Every tear you've cried in secret has been liquid anointing stored in heaven's armory. Every prayer you've whispered in the dark has been ammunition being crafted for spiritual warfare. Every year you've waited has been adding velocity to your eventual release. Your prodigal children who broke your heart, they're about to become your greatest testimony. That business that failed 20 years ago, it taught you lessons that will make your next venture unstoppable. That ministry that crumbled, it burned away everything that wasn't gold, leaving only what can withstand eternal fire. But here's the part that will make you weep with recognition. The waiting is almost over. Can you feel it? That shift in the spiritual atmosphere, that restlessness that's different from the old restlessness, that's not impatience, that's anticipation. Heaven is getting ready to release what it's been building. Isaiah 60-22 promises, "When the time is right, I, the Lord, will make it happen." Not if the time comes, when the time is right. And beloved, your time is becoming right. The chains that have held you aren't breaking. They're about to be transformed into the very tools of your triumph. What felt like bondage is about to become your platform. What looked like prison is about to become your palace. But you must be ready for the violence of the launch. When God releases what He's been building, it doesn't trickle, it explodes. It doesn't seep, it floods. It doesn't whisper, it thunders. Your breakthrough isn't coming to make you comfortable. It's coming to make you dangerous. Dangerous to the kingdom of darkness that thought your delay meant your defeat. Dangerous to the systems that counted you out. Dangerous to the very limitations that have been lying to you about your expiration date. The reason the wait was so long is because the launch will be so violent that it will not only change your life, it will shatter every ceiling that has contained your family line for generations. If you're ready for this explosive release, if you're done with delay and desperate for deployment, comment right now, "I'm ready for the launch." Because what's about to happen next will explain why the enemy has been working overtime to convince you that your season has passed. You know what's breaking my heart right now? It's watching God's chosen ones question their sanity while the world literally falls apart around them. You've been feeling it, haven't you? That crushing weight pressing down on your chest every time you turn on the news, every time your family argues at the dinner table, every time you see another for sale sign on your street, another empty storefront downtown. This nation is hemorrhaging hope. Families are splitting faster than you can pray for them. Your own children don't call like they used to. Your grandchildren are glued to screens, speaking a language you don't understand. Friends you've known for decades suddenly can't agree on anything. And through it all, there you are, the steady one, the calm one, the one everyone turns to when their world starts shaking. But here's what's eating at your soul. Why are you the one who has to hold it all together? Why does your phone ring at midnight when someone's marriage is falling apart? Why do your adult children still expect you to fix what their generation broke? Why do strangers at the grocery store start pouring out their life stories to you in the checkout line? Because you carry something they don't. Something ancient. Something dangerous to the kingdom of darkness. Turn with me to Mark chapter 4, verse 35. Jesus had been teaching all day by the Sea of Galilee. The crowds were massive, the pressure intense, and when evening came, he said to his disciples, "Let us go over to the other side." Simple words, ordinary journey, but hell had other plans. Verse 37 tells us that a furious squall came up, and the waves broke over the boat, so that it was nearly swamped. This wasn't a gentle rain shower, beloved. This was a Category 5 hurricane designed to destroy the Son of God and everyone with him. The disciples, grown men, seasoned fishermen, who'd survived storms their entire lives, they were paralyzed with terror. But where was Jesus? Verse 38. Jesus was in the stern, sleeping on a cushion, sleeping in a hurricane. While his closest friends thought they were about to die, that's not normal human behavior. That's supernatural authority over chaos itself. The disciples shook him awake, screaming, "Teacher, don't you care if we drown?" And here's where everything changes. Here's where the natural world meets the supernatural. Jesus didn't grab a bucket. He didn't start bailing water. He didn't even look concerned. He stood up, and he spoke 3 words that shattered every demonic force that had orchestrated that storm. Peace, be still. Mark 4:39 says, "The wind died down, and it was completely calm." Not gradually calm, not mostly calm, completely calm. The kind of calm that only comes when the voice of the Creator speaks to his creation. But here's what'll blow your mind. The disciples weren't celebrating. They were terrified. Verse 41, they were terrified and asked each other, "Who is this? Even the wind and the waves obey him." They were more afraid of the calm than they were of the storm, because they suddenly realized they were sitting next to someone who could command nature itself. Chosen one, do you understand what I'm telling you? You've been wondering why you're the only one in your family who isn't losing their mind over the state of this world. You've been questioning why you can sleep at night when everyone else is popping anxiety pills. You've been feeling guilty because you have peace when your neighbors are in panic. Stop feeling guilty. Start feeling grateful. Because what you carry isn't denial, it's divine DNA. Think about your life for a moment. Really think. How many storms have you weathered that should have destroyed you? That divorce that everyone said would ruin you financially, you not only survived, you thrived. That diagnosis, the doctor said, was terminal. You're still here, still fighting, still believing. That business that failed when you were 55 and everyone said you were too old to start over, look where you are now. You didn't just survive those storms, you slept through them. While others were panicking, something in you stayed steady. While they were making emergency plans, you were making dinner. While they were losing their minds, you were finding your peace. That's not luck. That's not positive thinking. That's the peace, be still voice of Jesus Christ himself living inside your mortal body. But here's where it gets controversial. Here's where the rubber meets the road. What if the chaos swirling around you right now, the family drama, the political insanity, the economic uncertainty, what if it's not happening to you, but for you? What if it's not a punishment, but a promotion? What if God is allowing the storm to rage so you can demonstrate the power of his peace? You see, anyone can be calm when everything's going well, but it takes someone with supernatural authority to be calm in a Category 5 hurricane. It takes someone filled with the Spirit of God to sleep in the stern while everyone else is bailing water. Your family doesn't just need your advice, they need your atmosphere. Your community doesn't just need your prayers, they need your presence. This nation doesn't just need your vote, it needs your voice, the voice that carries the peace. Be still command of the living God. But here's the urgent truth that'll change everything. The enemy knows what you carry. He knows that when you finally step into your full authority, when you stop apologizing for your peace and start commanding with it, his kingdom of chaos will crumble. That's why the attacks on your mind have been so intense lately. That's why you've been questioning yourself, your faith, your purpose. That's why the enemy keeps whispering, you're too old, too tired, too ordinary to make a difference. Because he's terrified of what happens when you finally realize you're not just surviving the storm, you are the storm stopper. The question burning in heaven right now is this: will you keep hiding your authority, or will you finally stand up and speak to the chaos around you? Dear chosen one, I need you to stop right where you are and feel something happening in this very moment. Can you sense it? That invisible weight settling across your shoulders. That's not your imagination. That's heaven itself draping something sacred over your life. You see, while the world has been whispering that your best days are behind you, God has been preparing to place something on you that he's been saving for decades. Something that requires gray hair to carry. Something that demands the kind of wisdom that only comes from walking through fires and still choosing faith. Let me take you to a moment that will shatter everything you believed about being past your prime. 2 Kings chapter 2. Elijah, the mighty prophet who called down fire from heaven, is about to be taken up in a whirlwind. But before he goes, he has one final act. He takes off his mantle, his cloak of authority, and lets it fall. But here's what most people miss about this story. Elisha wasn't young. He wasn't some fresh-faced seminary graduate. He was a seasoned farmer, hands calloused from years of plowing, back bent from decades of labor. When that mantle fell across his shoulders, it wasn't landing on youth, it was landing on maturity. It was landing on someone who had been tested by time and proven faithful in the ordinary. Right now, in this very moment, I hear the Spirit of the Lord saying there's a mantle falling. Not on the young and ambitious, not on the social media famous, but on those who have been faithful in the hidden years, on those who have gray hair like crowns of glory gained in a righteous life. Proverbs 16:31. You think you've been overlooked? No, beloved. You've been preserved. Preserved for such a time as this. While others were building platforms, you were building character. While they were chasing fame, you were chasing faithfulness. While they were accumulating followers, you were accumulating wisdom. But here's what's breaking my heart right now. How many of you are sitting there thinking, this can't be for me. I'm 70, I'm 75, I'm 80. My time has passed. Stop that lie right in its tracks. That's not God's voice, that's the enemy trying to rob you of your greatest hour. Listen to me carefully. Moses was 80 when God called him to deliver a nation. 80. When the world would put him in a retirement home, God put a staff in his hand and said, "Now we begin." Caleb was 85 when he said, "Give me this mountain." Not "give me a rocking chair, give me this mountain." Your age isn't your disqualification, it's your qualification. Every wrinkle on your face is a line of wisdom. Every grey hair is a stripe of honor. Every scar on your heart is proof that you've survived what should have killed you. The mantle that's falling on you right now carries the authority of experience. The young can speak from enthusiasm, but you speak from endurance. They can preach from passion, but you preach from proof. They can declare promises, but you can testify to his faithfulness because you've watched him show up when everyone else walked away. Do you feel it? That stirring in your spirit? That's not nostalgia, dear one. That's activation. Something that's been dormant for decades is waking up. Something that's been buried under years of being told to act your age is breaking through the surface. Here's what the enemy doesn't want you to know. Your influence doesn't decrease with age, it intensifies. Your power doesn't diminish, it deepens. Your calling doesn't expire, it matures like fine wine, getting richer and more potent with every passing year. The mantle falling on you carries something the younger generation desperately needs but cannot manufacture: authentic authority. The kind that comes from walking with God through seasons when he was your only source. The kind that develops when you've praised him in the storm, trusted him in the silence, and still believed when the doctor's report said otherwise. But I need to warn you about something. When this mantle settles fully on your shoulders, everything changes. People will start looking at you differently. Your words will carry weight they didn't have before. Your prayers will move mountains because they come from a place of proven faith. Your presence will shift atmospheres because you carry the oil of someone who has been refined by fire. This isn't just about personal breakthrough, beloved. This is about generational impact. Your grandchildren need to see what real faith looks like. Your community needs to witness what happens when someone refuses to fade quietly into the background. This nation needs elders who will stand up and declare, "Thus says the Lord," with the authority of those who have seen his faithfulness across decades. The mantle is falling. Can you feel the weight of it? Can you sense the honor of it? This isn't just any covering. This is the cloak of divine assignment, tailored specifically for your shoulders, prepared through every trial you've endured, every tear you've shed, every prayer you've whispered in the dark. You weren't forgotten in your wilderness years. You were being fitted for this moment. Every closed door was God protecting you until you were ready for what's about to open. Every delay was divine timing, ensuring you had the character to handle the authority he's about to release. The question that will determine your destiny is this: will you pick up the mantle that's falling, or will you let it lie on the ground while you continue believing the lie that your season is over? If you can feel this mantle settling on your shoulders, if something ancient and powerful is awakening in your spirit, if you're ready to stop apologizing for your age and start walking in your authority, type in the comments right now, "The mantle is mine," because what's about to happen next will require every ounce of the wisdom you've gained, every lesson you've learned, every victory you've won in the secret place. The harvest is ready, but heaven needs laborers who won't quit when it gets hard, and that's exactly what you've proven yourself to be. But here's what's breaking my heart right now, and I need you to listen with everything you've got. While you've been feeling like God forgot your address, while you've been wondering if your prayers bounce off heaven's ceiling like rubber balls, there's been a war raging in the spiritual realm over your bloodline. Your grandmother didn't just pray for you, beloved. She wept for you. At 2 a.m., on her knees beside that old bed, tears streaming down her weathered face, she called your name into eternity before you were even born. Your grandfather's calloused hands didn't just work to feed his family, they trembled as he begged God to break the chains that had held your lineage captive for generations. They saw what you're seeing now, the addiction that's been passing from father to son like some cursed inheritance, the depression that visits every family reunion like an unwelcome relative. The poverty that clings to your family tree like Spanish moss, beautiful from a distance, but choking the life out of everything it touches. Look around your Thanksgiving table this year. How many empty chairs? How many grandchildren lost to drugs you can't even pronounce? How many adult children who won't return your calls because they're drowning in a culture that calls evil good and good evil? How many nights have you laid awake wondering if you failed them somehow? Stop, right there. That guilt you're carrying, that shame that whispers you didn't do enough, pray enough, love enough, that's not the voice of heaven. That's the enemy's final weapon against the very generation God chose to break every chain. Listen to me carefully, chosen one. You are not the victim of your family's history. You are the victor who rewrites it. Joel 2:28 declares something that will shatter every lie you've believed about your age, your relevance, your power. And afterward, I will pour out my spirit on all people. Your old men will dream dreams. Your young men will see visions. Did you catch that? OLD. Men will dream dreams. Not remember dreams, not reminisce about dreams. Will dream. Present tense, active, alive. God saved his most powerful visions for your season because he knew you'd have the wisdom to handle them and the desperation to pursue them. You think you're too old. Moses was 80 when he split the Red Sea. You think you're too broken. David wrote his most powerful psalms in caves while running for his life. You think you've missed your moment. Sarah laughed at 90 and birthed nations. But here's what's about to explode your understanding of why you're still here. Why you survived every heart attack, every cancer scare, every financial collapse, every funeral that should have been yours. You weren't preserved for your own sake. You were preserved for their sake. Your grandchildren who don't know you're praying for them. Your great-grandchildren who aren't even born yet. The chains that bound your great-grandfather. Broken. The addiction that claimed your father. Powerless. The generational curse that whispered this is just who we are. Cancelled. Not by your strength, not by your perfection, but by your surrender to become the wrecking ball heaven aimed at hell's strongholds. You are the answer to prayers prayed by people whose names you never knew, in languages you don't speak, in decades before you drew breath. You are the breaker of the bloodline curse. The chain doesn't just slow down with you, it ends with you. That restlessness in your spirit isn't confusion, it's confirmation. The dreams that feel too big for your age aren't delusion. Their download. God is about to use your final chapters to rewrite your family's entire story. If you receive this legacy, if you're ready to stop being a victim of your bloodline and start being its victor, comment, "It ends with me." Because what happens next will determine whether your descendants inherit blessing or bondage. Chosen one, as we reach the end of this sacred encounter, I need you to carry 3 eternal truths in your heart, like precious stones. First, that restlessness you've been feeling, that divine alarm disrupting your sleep, it's not punishment, it's protection. God hasn't been withholding your blessing, he's been shielding you from a counterfeit that would have destroyed your destiny. Second, you are the generational chain breaker. Every tear your grandmother shed, every prayer your grandfather whispered in the dark, every sacrifice made by ancestors whose names you'll never know it all, led to this moment, to you, standing at the crossroads with the power to rewrite your family's legacy forever. And third, what looks like delay is actually divine positioning. You're not behind schedule, you're exactly where heaven needs you to be for the breakthrough that's about to explode into your reality. But here's what I need you to know. Deeper than knowledge, settled in your bones. You are not walking this path alone. The same God who parted the Red Sea is still moving mountains in your life right now. The same Spirit who raised Christ from the dead is breathing life into your dead situations this very moment. And you have something beautiful here, a community of believers who understand your struggle, who've walked your path, who are ready to surround you with prayer. We see you, we hear you, we believe with you. So let me ask you this final question, and let it settle deep in your spirit. Now that you know the trap, now that you see the snare, now that heaven has pulled back the curtain on the enemy's deception, what will you choose? Will you trust God's timing even when it feels like delay? Will you wait for His green light even when the world is screaming go? Before I release you, let me place my hand on your shoulder through these words and pray over your life with the authority of someone who has walked with God through decades of storms. Heavenly Father, I lift up every precious soul who has stayed with us through this entire message. Lord, you see their tears, you know their struggles, you feel the weight they've been carrying alone in the dark. Tonight, I pray that you would lift every burden that was never theirs to bear. God, expose every trap the enemy has set for their feet. Reveal every counterfeit blessing disguised as your will. Give them supernatural discernment to recognize your voice above the noise of pressure, desperation, and worldly wisdom. Where they feel forgotten, remind them they are treasured. Where they feel behind, show them they are positioned. Where they feel weak, demonstrate your strength made perfect in their weakness. Father, break every generational curse that has haunted their bloodline. Let the chains of addiction, poverty, depression, and defeat be shattered forever. Make them the ancestors their descendants will thank you for. Protect their homes, their health, their relationships, and their resources. Send divine connections and remove toxic influences. Open doors that no man can shut, and close doors that lead to destruction. Most of all, Lord, let them feel your presence right now. Let them know they are loved beyond measure, chosen beyond doubt, and destined for victory beyond their wildest dreams. In Jesus' mighty name, I seal this prayer and release breakthrough over their lives. Amen. Now, I want to hear from you. In the comments below, share what God spoke to your heart tonight. What trap did He help you see? What breakthrough are you believing Him for? Don't walk this journey alone. Let this community surround you with prayer and encouragement. And please, if this message touched your soul, share it with someone who needs to hear it. There's someone in your life right now who's standing at the same crossroads, facing the same deception. They need to know they're not alone. If you haven't already, subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell. We're building something beautiful together, a family of believers who refuse to settle for counterfeits when God has authentic miracles waiting. Thank you for staying with me through this entire journey. Thank you for opening your heart, for trusting God's voice, for choosing His timing over the world's pressure. Walk in wisdom, chosen one. The trap has been exposed, the warning has been given, and your destiny is secure in His hands. Until we meet again, rest in His peace, trust in His timing, and know that your greatest chapter is still being written. God bless you mightily.